He invited his barren ex-wife to his wedding to mock her, but she arrived in a Lamborghini with quadruplets. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The black heritage, you are here. And that means God has already ordained that your eyes will see something powerful today. Before we dive deep, and I mean deep, into this jaw-dropping, soul-stirring, heart-shaking story of betrayal, shame, divine justice, and the most glorious comeback this channel has ever brought you, I need you to do three things right now. Right now, before you move 1 inch further into this video. Number 1, smash that like button. Smash it like Chief Desmond's pride at that wedding. Smash it because you believe that no woman, no man, no human being on this earth should ever be mocked, humiliated, or thrown away for what God has simply not yet released into their life. Your season is coming. Smash that button. Number 2, share this video. Put it on your WhatsApp status. Drop it in your family group chat. Send it to your church women's fellowship, your men's prayer group, your village kindred WhatsApp. Someone in your contact list is going through exactly what Amara went through, being blamed, being shamed, being discarded, and this story will be the word they need to hear today. Be the reason someone's faith is restored tonight. Number 3, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. Every single week we bring you the most explosive, most emotional, most culturally rich Nollywood-inspired stories of redemption, triumph, and divine justice on the internet. You cannot afford to miss a single episode. Hit that bell now. And before we begin, drop a comment right now. Type Team Amara if you believe God never forgets his children. Type karma is real if you know that what a man sows, he must reap. We are reading every single comment and we love you for being here. Now, family, settle in. Make yourself comfortable, because today's story will take you from the deepest valley of pain to the highest mountain of victory. Let us begin. Teaser scene 1. Camera slowly pans over a sprawling Banana Island mansion at midnight. Rain lashes the floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside, the marble-floored living room glitters under crystal chandeliers, imported Italian furniture, framed portraits of Chief Desmond shaking hands with presidents and governors. Every surface speaks of obscene wealth, and yet the air inside is cold and poisonous. Chief Desmond 45 years old, towers in the center of the room. He is a big man in every sense, tall, broad-shouldered, commanding, dressed in a custom silk agbada the color of midnight, a gold wristwatch on his wrist worth more than most men earn in 5 years. His eyes are blazing. His voice, when it comes, shakes the walls. Desmond, 8 years, Amara. 8 years of this so-called marriage, and still my house is empty. No child crawling on this floor. No baby crying in the night. My mother has wept herself blind. My friends at the Ikoi Club laugh at me behind my back. My business partners whisper that I have married a beautiful decoration that cannot function. 8 years and nothing. You are barren, Amara, a walking curse on my bloodline. I am done with you. Tonight you will pack whatever rags belong to you and leave my mansion. I am calling the family elders tomorrow. Amara Nwasu, 38, stands in the center of the room. She was once the most radiant woman in 3 local governments, the village beauty who turned every head at the Igbo cultural festivals, the young teacher whose smile could light a room. Now her eyes carry the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. Her wrapper is rumpled. Her hands tremble. She drops slowly to her knees on the cold marble floor, tears cutting silent paths down her face. Amara, voice breaking, barely above a whisper, Desmond, my husband, I have prayed. I have fasted for months at a time, 3 days, 7 days, 21 days. I have visited Lagos University Teaching Hospital, St. Nicholas Lagoon Hospital. I traveled to South Africa with that specialist's referral. I have sat in the offices of prophets and pastors who said they have moved mountains. I have drunk every bitter root and leaf that herbalists in 3 states prescribed. I have done everything a woman can do, everything. Please, Desmond, let us go together for a proper fertility test, both of us, together. Because maybe Desmond, cutting her off with a thunderous slam of his fist on the glass center table, the glass cracks like a spider web. How dare you? How dare you stand in my house, the house I built with my sweat and blood, and suggest the problem is me? I am a complete man. My late wife, God rest her soul, gave me 2 strong, healthy sons before that accident took her. 2 sons who are in boarding school right now carrying my name. I am not the problem, Amara. You are. You have always been. Pack your things. Tomorrow the divorce papers will be ready. You came into my life with nothing and you will leave with nothing but the shame you have brought on yourself. Screen cuts to black. Dramatic music sting teaser scene 2 fast cut montage. Set to rising, triumphant music that starts soft and builds like a tide. Amara at a tiny food stall under a leaking zinc umbrella in Aja Market, stirring a massive pot of jollof rice at 5 a.m. while rain drips on her shoulder. Her hands are cracked. Her eyes are red. But she does not stop. Cut to a queue of office workers stretching around the block, each one waiting hungrily for a plate of Amara's food. Cut to Amara signing her first corporate catering contract. Her hand shakes slightly as the pen touches the paper. Cut to 2 white vans branded Golden Palms luxury events and catering rolling through Lekki. Cut to Amara in a tailored power suit, standing at the glass window of a high-rise office in Victoria Island, Lagos skyline stretching behind her, signing a multi-million naira deal with a commercial bank. Cut to her laughing genuinely, freely laughing for the first time in years. Narrator, deep, commanding voice. What Chief Desmond Chukwuma did not know, what his pride blinded him from ever investigating, was that the doctor's report sitting in a sealed envelope would expose 8 years of wicked lies, and that the woman he threw out of his mansion in the rain was about to walk into a destiny so glorious, so God-ordained, that the very angels stopped to watch. Teaser scene 3 grand wedding hall in Ikoi. Crystal chandeliers, white and gold decor. 500 of Lagos's most powerful people, governors, senators, pastors of megachurches, oil company executives, all gathered to celebrate Chief Desmond Chukwuma's new marriage. He stands at the altar in a cream agbada, smug and satisfied, whispering arrogantly to his groomsmen. Outside in the sweeping driveway, a sleek yellow Lamborghini Urus the color of pure gold in sunlight rolls to a stop. Silence falls like a curtain over the guests nearest the entrance. The doors open. Amara steps out. Red off-shoulder designer gown, hair perfectly set, skin glowing as if lit from within, diamonds at her ears and throat. She looks like a woman who has been through fire and come out refined. 4 toddlers, 2 boys and 2 girls in perfectly matching cream and gold outfits tumble out after her, giggling, holding each other's hands in her fingers. Desmond sees her. The blood leaves his face. His smile collapses. His new bride grabs his arm. Desmond, stammering, voice cracking to almost nothing. Amara, those children, how is this possible? The children run toward the garden fountain, squealing with laughter, unbothered by the stares of 500 frozen guests. Screen flashes the gold title card with a thunderous orchestral sting. He invited his Barren ex-wife to his wedding to mock her. But She arrived in a Lamborghini with quadruplets transition. Triumphant orchestral swell melting into soft emotional strings. Chapter 1. The beginning of the conflicto. Understand the magnitude of what happened on that wedding day. You must first understand where Amara came from. You must understand what she survived. Because the miracle is only as breathtaking as the darkness that preceded it. Amara Nwasu was born in Ennui, Anambra State, the third of 6 children of a retired primary school headmaster and a hardworking market woman. They were not rich people, but they were people of character, prayer, and unshakable dignity. Her father, Pa Emmanuel Nwasu, was known throughout the community as a man of integrity, a man who said what he meant and paid every debt. Her mother, Mama Ngozi, was the kind of woman who could feed 12 people with ingredients meant for 4, and still send a portion to the neighbor whose husband had lost his job. Amara grew up watching her parents love each other quietly, practically, faithfully. She grew up believing that marriage was a covenant, serious, sacred, not something to be dissolved because the road became rough. She was a brilliant student, topped her class at Federal Government Girls College, graduated from University of Nigeria Nsukka with a second-class upper in home economics and hotel management, and came to Lagos at 26 with her certificate, her mother's prayers stitched into her heart, and a dream to build something of her own. She met Desmond Chukwuma at a corporate dinner in Eco Hotel. He was 37 then, newly widowed, devastatingly handsome in his dark suit, and absolutely certain of himself in the way that only men who have never faced real failure can be. He was drawn to her immediately, her quiet elegance, her laugh, the way she engaged every person at the table as if they were the most important person in the room. He pursued her deliberately and thoroughly, the way he pursued oil contracts, with resources, with strategy, and with the unshakable expectation of winning. Their courtship lasted 14 months. He took her to Dubai, to London, to Paris. He introduced her to senators and pastors and CEOs. He told her she was the woman God had prepared to fill the empty seat at his table. He was tender in those days, patient, warm, full of words that felt like honey poured slowly. Their traditional wedding in Ennui was the talk of the state. 14 governors sent representatives. The bride price he paid was the most lavish in the recorded memory of the community. Her father wept with gratitude. Her mother held her face and whispered, "My daughter, you have married a good man. Honor your home." For the first 2 years, the marriage was everything she had prayed for. Desmond was a challenging man, opinionated, controlling, accustomed to getting his way, but she navigated him with patience and love. She made his house a home. She hosted his business associates with warmth and excellence. She traveled with him, advised him, prayed over his business decisions, stood by his side at every public engagement like the partner she had promised to be. But by the end of year 2, a shadow began to creep. Mama Chukwuma started asking questions at family gatherings, pointed questions with daggers hidden inside them. "Amara, my daughter, when are we hearing good news? A young woman like you, eating well and resting well, why are your hands still empty?" The questions grew sharper year by year. By year 4, they were no longer questions. They were accusations. Desmond began to change. The tenderness faded. He started staying out later. He became dismissive and cold at home while projecting warmth and charm in public. He stopped attending church with her. He started spending weekends at his mother's compound in Surulere, coming home smelling of other perfumes. Amara threw herself into prayer. She joined the women's intercessory group at their church. She fasted. She went for medical checkups. Everything came back normal. She dragged Desmond once, just once, to a fertility clinic in Ikoi. He sat in the waiting room for 12 minutes, declared it nonsense, and walked out. He never returned. At the 5th-year family meeting, Mama Chukwuma assembled 15 relatives in the living room and announced in a voice pitched exactly loud enough to be heard by the kitchen staff that Amara must have done something in her youth to block her own womb. Amara sat with her hands folded in her lap, her face perfectly composed, while the shame burned through her like acid. Desmond said nothing to defend her. He stared at his phone. By year 6, Amara was having what she recognized, years later in therapy, as a complete psychological breakdown: quiet, private, performed in bathroom stalls and the back seats of Ubers where she could muffle the sound. She visited a psychiatrist once, a kind man in Aikja, who told her, "Madam, the symptoms I am seeing are not from infertility. They are from sustained emotional abuse." She went home and never told anyone. In year 7, she discovered that Desmond had been seeing a woman, Belinda, a socialite from Port Harcourt, for at least 18 months. She confronted him. He did not deny it. He looked at her with something close to boredom and said, "What did you expect? A man has needs. A man has legacy needs. You cannot give me what I need." Year 8 arrived like a death sentence already pronounced. The Chukwuma family had already decided. Mama Chukwuma had already chosen. Desmond had already made his arrangements. The night he summoned the family elders and stood over Amara in that marble living room, he was not making a decision, he was executing a plan he had been building for months. The divorce was heard before a Lagos State High Court judge who, upon reviewing the settlement agreement Desmond's lawyers had prepared, raised an eyebrow at the clause that provided Amara with no property, no vehicle, no financial settlement, nothing from 8 years of marriage. Amara's lawyer attempted to object. Desmond's legal team, 4 senior advocates in 500,000 suits, buried the objection in procedural motions. The judge, visibly uncomfortable, granted the divorce. He looked at Amara for a long moment before signing. She would later remember that look. It was the look of a man who knew something unjust was happening and did not have the courage to stop it. That evening, Amara stood outside the iron gates of the Banana Island mansion with two worn suitcases. The rain came, Lagos rain, the relentless, drenching kind that seems personal. A security man she had known for 6 years avoided her eyes. The gates closed with a sound like a full stop. She stood in the rain for 3 minutes, not because she did not know where to go, but because she needed to feel it, the full weight of the moment before she chose to take the next step. She was not going to pretend this did not hurt. She was not going to swallow it down and walk away smiling. She allowed herself to stand in the rain and feel the full devastation. Then she picked up both suitcases and walked toward the main road to flag a taxi to Tonia's flat in Aja. That night, on a thin mattress in Tonia's second bedroom while her best friend sat beside her rubbing her back, Amara Nwasu spoke words into the ceiling that would later feel like prophecy. God, I do not understand you right now. I do not understand why, but I know you. And I know you do not waste pain. Whatever this is for you, sit. Then she wept until her body gave out and she slept. Chapter 2. Discovery and New Beginnings. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Tonia drove Amara to a fertility specialist in Victoria Island, a warm, no-nonsense woman named Dr. Funka Debio, who had trained in Johns Hopkins and had a waiting list of 6 months that Tonia had gotten them onto by calling in a favor from a mutual friend. Dr. Adebio took 2 hours. She ran every test. She reviewed Amara's full medical history with the careful attention of someone who understood that a woman's body had been blamed for something and she intended to find the truth. When she finally sat across the desk from Amara and Tonia, she folded her hands and said simply, "Madam Amara, your reproductive system is in excellent health. Your ovarian reserve is strong. Your hormones are balanced. Your uterus is perfectly normal. You are highly, unambiguously fertile. The difficulty you experienced in your marriage was not caused by you. I cannot tell you what the cause was from your side, because there was no cause on your side. But I can tell you with complete clinical certainty you were never the problem." Tonia gripped Amara's hand under the table. Amara did not cry immediately. She sat very still, the way a person sits when the ground has just shifted under them and they are waiting to understand if they are still standing. Then the tears came, not the broken, helpless tears of the Banana Island rain. These were different. These were the tears of a woman receiving back something that had been taken from her, her name, her truth. 8 years of her identity rebuilt in one sentence by a doctor who simply told the truth. She cried for 40 minutes in that consulting room. Dr. Adebio brought her water and tissues and did not rush her. Tonia held her and rocked her and said nothing, because nothing needed to be said. That evening, walking back to Tonia's car in the parking lot of the clinic, Amara stopped. She looked up at the sky over Victoria Island, the late afternoon sky, golden and enormous, and she made a decision. Not a loud decision. A quiet, absolute, irrevocable decision. She was going to build something. She was going to build it from nothing, from these 2 suitcases and 450,000 in a savings account, and this truth she had just been given. And she was going to build it so well, so thoroughly, so visibly, that the silence she had survived would one day speak louder than anything Desmond Chukwuma had ever shouted in that marble living room. She started with food. It was what she knew. It was what she loved. At 4 a.m. every morning she woke, lit the gas stove in Tonia's kitchen, and cooked. She went to Aja Market by 5:30 a.m. to set up the food stall she had rented for 15,000 a month, a narrow space under a zinc roof between a fabric cellar and a phone accessories kiosk. She cooked jollof rice that smelled like a celebration. She made egusi soup that had grown men closing their eyes after the first spoon. She made pepper soup so complex and layered in flavor that a customer once sat silently for 2 minutes after eating, then looked up at her and said, "Madam, who taught you this?" "My mother," Amara said, and suffering. By month 3, the queue outside her stall stretched past the fabric cellar and the phone kiosk and halfway around the block. By month 6, she had 2 staff, a dedicated supplier for fresh ingredients, and her first corporate catering inquiry a bank in Lekki that needed lunch service for 200 staff every weekday. She bought 2 second-hand vans. She registered Golden Palms luxury events and catering with the Corporate Affairs Commission. She hired a graphic designer she found on Twitter for $25,000 and got a logo that looked professional enough to put on a business card she could hand to oil company executives without apology. The business grew with the kind of momentum that happens when genuine quality meets a market that has been starved for it. She catered a senator's daughter's wedding 500 guests, 12 courses, a dessert table that guests photographed and posted for weeks. She landed a contract with 3 commercial banks for weekly corporate lunch service. She catered a Nollywood actress's birthday party that became the most discussed event on Lagos social media for 2 weeks, largely because of the food. Celebrities called. Event planners referred her. Competitors tried to poach her staff, duplicate her recipes, spread rumors about hygiene. She answered every attack with consistency and excellence always won. Within 3 years, she moved into a 5-bedroom duplex in Lekki Phase 1. She bought herself a white Range Rover. She sent money home to her parents every month without fail. She took Tonya on a trip to Dubai as a thank you that made Tonya cry at the airport. It was at a tech company's product launch event, a lavish evening affair, in a converted warehouse in Victoria Island that Amara's team had transformed into something spectacular, that she met Maxwell Adami. He was 42, quiet in the way that deeply confident people are quiet, tall, wearing a simple navy suit with no flashiness. He found her in the kitchen area reviewing plating with her staff, which was not where most CEO-level guests would look for the caterer, but he had been watching the food all evening and needed to understand where it came from. "I have eaten in 40 countries," he said simply, after introducing himself. "This is the best jollof rice I have ever eaten in my life. I need to understand how." She laughed a real laugh, surprised out of her. "The secret is the tomatoes, the timing, and a completely unreasonable amount of personal attention. That," Maxwell said, "is also the secret to everything worth doing." They talked for 2 hours in the corner of that warehouse, long after most guests had left. He was an engineer who had spent 12 years in Germany building a construction and renewable energy company, had returned to Nigeria 3 years ago to invest in infrastructure projects, had lost his first wife to cancer 6 years earlier, and was raising a teenage daughter named Sachima who was, by his account, the most formidable human being he had ever encountered. He listened to Amara, not just the professional story, but the real one, the one she found herself telling him in pieces over the following weeks without pity, without the performative sympathy she had learned to dread, and without any attempt to fix her. "You don't need fixing," he told her one evening, 3 months into a friendship that was quietly, undeniably becoming something more. They were walking along the Lekki shoreline at sunset, the Lagos skyline behind them, the Atlantic in front. "You've already done all the hard work yourself. I'm just someone who wants to watch what comes next." Their courtship was slow and deliberate and deeply respectful. He introduced her to Sachima, who assessed Amara with the terrifying clarity of a 16-year-old who has already lost one parent and has no patience for pretense. After dinner one evening, Sachima looked at Amara and said, "You're not trying to replace my mum. Good. I hate it when people try to do that." Then she smiled a small, genuine smile and turned back to her phone. Amara considered this a categorical endorsement. Maxwell met her parents in Ennui on a Saturday. Pa Emmanuel sat with him for 4 hours, asking questions so penetrating and specific that Maxwell later told Amara it was the most rigorous vetting process he had experienced since a board presentation to German infrastructure investors. He passed. Pa Emmanuel shook his hand at the gate and said, "You are a careful man. Careful men make good fathers and good husbands. Welcome." Chapter 3. The miraculous turn. Their traditional wedding was held in April in Ennui, under a canopy of Iroko trees strung with white lights. 500 guests from 4 states. Igbo music and dance that went until 2 a.m. Amara in coral beads and a wrapper in the family colors. Maxwell in a white agbada. her father weeping openly as he handed her forward, her mother gripping her hand at the door of the family compound and saying, "This time, my daughter, it is real." 6 months after the wedding, Amara sat in Dr. Adebio's consulting room again, the same room where, 3 years earlier, she had been told the truth that changed everything. Dr. Adebio looked at the ultrasound screen for a long moment. Then she turned it toward Amara and pointed 1 heartbeat, 2 heartbeats, 3 heartbeats, 4, and said, with the carefully controlled professional composure of someone who is also, underneath it, completely astonished, "Madam Amara, you are carrying quadruplets. 4 healthy embryos, all with strong cardiac activity. I've been in practice for 22 years. This is genuinely extraordinary." Maxwell was in the waiting room. When Amara came through the door, her face told him everything and nothing simultaneously. She looked like a woman who had just been shown something too large to hold in one expression. She sat down next to him. She took both his hands. She said, "4." He looked at her. "For what?" "4 bobbies, Maxwell. We are having 4 bobbies." The silence lasted 4 seconds. Then Maxwell Adami, an engineer who had supervised the construction of bridges over rivers in 3 countries, who had negotiated contracts with German banks and Lagos state government officials and done it all with unflappable composure, put his face in his hands and wept. Then he laughed. Then he stood up in the waiting room, looked at the ceiling, and said loudly to no one in particular, "4 children. God, you are showing off now." The pregnancy was high risk by definition. Quadruplet pregnancies always are, and Dr. Adebio managed it with the obsessive care of a woman who understood the full weight of what she was protecting. Amara was monitored every 2 weeks, then weekly in the final trimester. Maxwell drove her to every appointment, sat in every consultation, took handwritten notes in a small notebook she would find years later and read with her hand over her mouth. He cooked for her badly, enthusiastically, with a dedication that produced results ranging from surprisingly edible to genuinely alarming, because she had given strict instructions to her staff that she wanted him to feel useful. He massaged her swollen feet at 2 a.m. when she could not sleep. He read to the bobbies every night, pressing his lips against the enormous curve of her stomach and telling them about Nigeria, about engineering, about their grandparents, about what he was hopping for them. At 34 weeks in a private hospital in Ikoyi, via planned cesarean section, Amara delivered 4 bobbies. 2 boys, Kamziachukwu and Chibuz. 2 girls, Chimamanda and Adana. Each one arrived screaming, which Dr. Adebio said was exactly what she wanted to hear. The maternity ward staff, nurses, orderlies, the anesthesiologist, a cleaner who happened to be walking past, gathered in the corridor outside and cheered. Tonia, waiting outside with Amara's parents, received the news and collapsed onto a chair. Pa Emmanuel took off his cap and held it to his chest and prayed the most raw, unscripted prayer of his life. Mama Ngozi walked to the window, looked out at the night sky over Lagos, and simply said, "I knew. I always knew." Chapter 4. The wedding disgrace. 2 years passed. The quadruplets grew into themselves, Kamzi loud and exploratory, Chibuz careful and watchful, Chimamanda the negotiator who could broker a peace treaty over the last piece of chin-chin, Adana who laughed with her whole body and had her father's exact hands. Amara's business had by now expanded beyond catering into a full events and hospitality group, 3 operational brands, 40 full-time staff, a satellite operation in Abuja, and a partnership with a hotel group she and Maxwell had invested in together. She had been profiled in 2 business magazines. She had spoken at a women's entrepreneurship summit. She was, by any measure, extraordinary. Desmond Chukwuma had meanwhile been living the life he had constructed for himself. His business remained profitable. Oil contracts had a way of surviving the moral failures of the men who held them. He had spent the years after the divorce cycling through relationships with younger women, driven by the same desperate logic that had destroyed his marriage. The need for an heir, the need for proof, the need to be seen as complete. Belinda Sharp, stylish, 29 years old, from a wealthy Port Harcourt family, had lasted longer than the others. She was not a woman who loved quietly. She was a woman who wanted the full performance of a billionaire's life, and was willing to produce the performance of devotion required to access it. They suited each other in that transactional way. For the wedding, Desmond had spared nothing. The venue was a ballroom in a five-star Ikoyi hotel, white and gold, crystal and flowers, a guest list of 500 that read like a Lagos power directory. He had hired a renowned MC, a celebrity DJ, a live band, a photographer from London, and a team of event planners who had collectively organized weddings for 3 African heads of state. And then, in what his friends would later describe as either the most arrogant or the most self-destructive act of his life possibly, both Desmond personally retrieved Amara's old phone number from a contact list and sent her a gold-embossed invitation to his wedding. Not a standard guest invitation. He told his PA to write a personal note inside. "We would be honored by your presence, as a demonstration of our mutual goodwill and the finality of past chapters." His PA, a discreet young man who had watched Desmond make questionable decisions for 4 years, wrote the note without comment and sent it without comment, and quietly began updating his own CV that afternoon. Desmond stated reason to his groomsmen: over whiskey at a private dinner the week before. "Let her come. Let her sit in that hall and watch me marry a beautiful, full woman while she is still alone and childless. Let her see what her inability cost her." The invitation reached Amara on a Tuesday morning. She was in her Lekki office reviewing quarterly reports. She read it once. She set it down. She looked out the window at the Lagos lagoon glittering in the morning light. Then she called Maxwell. "He invited me to his wedding," she said. "I know," Maxwell said. "He had a way of already knowing the things that mattered." "I'm going to go," she said. Silence. Then, "Are we taking the Lamborghini?" She laughed. "We are absolutely taking the Lamborghini." Maxwell had bought the yellow Lamborghini Urus 8 months earlier as an anniversary gift, a flamboyant choice that was entirely unlike him, which was precisely why he had chosen it. "You have earned something that makes noise when you arrive," he had told her. She had driven it twice and loved it both times and mostly left it in the garage because she was a practical woman. Today, she felt, was an appropriate occasion. She wore red. Custom designed, off-shoulder, perfectly fitted, the kind of red that does not apologize. The quadruplets were dressed by their grandmother in matching cream and gold, a choice Mama Ngozi made with the serene intentionality of a woman who has been waiting 2 years for the right occasion to deploy this particular outfit. The yellow Lamborghini pulled into the hotel driveway at 3:47 p.m. The valet froze. Guests near the entrance turned. The sound of the engine was, by design, audible. The doors opened. Amara stepped out. Then, one by one, 4 2-year-olds in cream and gold tumbled out after her like the most extravagant possible closing argument. The silence that fell over the entrance area was the specific silence of 500 people simultaneously revising a story they thought they already knew. Desmond was standing near the head table when the whispers reached him. He turned. He saw the yellow car through the window. He saw Amara. He saw the children, 4 of them, toddling and giggling and entirely unbothered by the weight of the moment they had wandered into. Every color left his face simultaneously. Belinda, beside him in diamonds and white, followed his gaze. Then she looked at his face. And in the particular intelligence of a woman who has always known she was in a transaction, she understood exactly what she was seeing. Belinda's voice gone quiet and cold. "You invited her. You personally invited your ex-wife, who has 4 children, and you told me she was barren and pathetic and you threw her out. Which of those things was a lie? Because they cannot all be true." Desmond barely audible. "Belinda, let me explain." "Belinda, at our wedding, Desmond. You chose to do this at our wedding." A guest near the entrance, a woman who had known Amara years before the marriage, who had watched the humiliation play out in real time and never forgotten it, detached a cordless microphone from a table and walked it quietly to Amara. She held it out without a word. Amara took it. She looked at the room. 500 people completely still. She spoke clearly, warmly, without triumph and without malice, which was somehow more devastating than either. "Amara, good afternoon, everyone. I was invited today as a guest and I honored that invitation. I want to say clearly, I bear no bitterness toward anyone in this room. Life is too full and too beautiful for bitterness. I came today with my husband Maxwell, and with our 4 children Kamsi, Chibuz, Chimamanda and Adana, who are 2 years old and were delivered by a God who, I promise you, does not forget. To anyone in this room who has been shamed, discarded, or told you are not enough, I want you to see me today. I want you to remember this moment the next time someone tells you what God cannot do for you. That is all I came to say. God bless this occasion. She handed the microphone back. She turned. She gathered her 4 toddlers, who had spent the speech attempting to climb a decorative planter by the entrance, and she walked back to the yellow Lamborghini. The applause that broke out behind her was not unanimous, but it was significant. Chapter 5. Resolution and Redemption. 3 months later, in a consulting room in a private clinic in Ikoyi, Desmond Chukwuma sat across from a doctor who had the particular posture of someone delivering news they know will not be received well, but which cannot be softened into something it is not. The test results had taken 4 weeks. Desmond had ordered them in a private fury the morning after the wedding, needing finally, irrevocably, to know the truth he had avoided for a decade. Dr. Chief, the results are conclusive. You have severely compromised sperm motility near zero in practical terms. This has almost certainly been a lifelong condition. The probability that you fathered biological children previously is based on these results very low. Desmond did not speak for a long time. The 2 sons from his first marriage, the sons he had used as his proof, his weapon, his justification for 8 years of cruelty, were boys his first wife had brought into the marriage from a relationship before him. He had known this, somewhere beneath the arrogance, without ever letting himself know it. The truth had always been available to him. He had simply chosen, consistently and deliberately, not to look. He drove to Amara's estate in Lekki. The yellow Lamborghini was in the driveway, next to a dark Range Rover and a family sedan. From somewhere inside the house, he could hear children's voices and Maxwell's deep laugh responding to something one of them had said. He sat in his car for 11 minutes. Then he got out. When the gate opened and Amara came to the entrance, she had been told he was there by the gateman, and she had come herself. Without staff or intermediary, she found a man she almost didn't recognize. Not because he had aged visibly, though he had. Because the quality of arrogance that had always animated his face, the held-up chin, the perpetual assumption of dominance, it was gone. What was left looked much more like an ordinary, frightened, deeply remorseful human being. He did not fall to his knees. That would have been theater. He stood on her driveway, his hands at his sides, and he looked at her and said, "I was wrong, Amara, about everything. I lied to myself for so long that I forgot it was a lie. And I used that lie to destroy 8 years of your life and to take from you things I had no right to take. There is nothing I can say that changes that. I know there isn't. I just needed you to hear me say the words." Amara stood in her doorway. From behind her, she could hear Kamsi asking Maxwell for juice with the aggressive confidence of a 2-year-old who has never been told no. She could smell something cooking in the kitchen her mother was visiting, and had taken over the stove at 8 a.m. with the authority of a woman who considers other people's kitchens a temporary inconvenience. She looked at Desmond for a moment, not with hatred, not with triumph, but with the clear, quiet compassion of someone who has processed a pain so thoroughly that the person who caused it has simply become someone who needs to be told the truth. "I forgive you," she said. "Not because what you did was small, it wasn't. Not because you deserve it, that's not my judgment to make. But because I refuse to carry that weight in this house, in this life, in front of my children. I forgave you a long time ago, Desmond. I forgave you for myself. You just didn't know it yet." She paused. "Go and find a doctor, a good one. And then go and find a therapist. And then when you're ready, go and find something worth building. You still have time." She went back inside, the gate closed, not with the sound of punishment, just with the ordinary, final sound of a door closing on something that was finished. Inside, Kamsi had found the juice. Chimamanda had negotiated herself a biscuit. Chibuz was sitting very seriously on Maxwell's foot, apparently under the impression that this was a reasonable place to be. Adana had found Mama Ngozi in the kitchen and was demanding to be picked up with the full force of her 2-year-old personality. Amara stood in the hallway of her home, the home she had built, the life she had constructed from 2 suitcases, and a night of rain, and a prayer spoken to a ceiling in a thin mattress room in Aja, and she listened to the sound of it. The extraordinary, ordinary, irreplaceable sound of her real life. Final shot. The camera pulls back through the garden window. Amara walking into the living room where Maxwell opens his arms without looking up from the child on his foot. The 4 toddlers converging on the scene. Mama Ngozi calling from the kitchen that the food will be ready in 5 minutes. The Lagos afternoon light falling gold across the floor. On-screen text, appearing slowly: what God cannot do does not exist. Never let anyone's cruelty define the ceiling of your life. Soft gospel choir building. End credits roll. Drop Team Amara or Quadruplets Miracle in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. See you next week, family.